So how do you make a great video with a very limited budget and not a lot of really fancy camera gear? Well, that was a question that was asked in 1903 when the Great Train Robbery was created. Yeah, that's not a question unique to you and me. Hi everybody, it's Mark from filmandlearning.com. The Great Train Robbery is one of my favorite films, not just because it broke ground on brand new filmmaking techniques, but because those techniques directly influenced and were perfected in the Star Wars original trilogy 70 plus years later. I'm going to hand this off to Grayson and Maya, and I'll catch up with you guys at the end of this deep dive analysis.
Imagine stepping back in time to 1903. Finding a seat in a dimly lit Nickelodeon. You're about to witness the birth of cinema. But not just any film. The Great Train Robbery. A 12-minute silent film that revolutionized storytelling. And it still inspires filmmakers over a century later. Today we're taking a deep dive into this groundbreaking film. We'll unearth the techniques and creative decisions that made it so impactful.
What's fascinating about The Great Train Robbery is that it was made for just $150, about $5,100 today. Director Edwin S. Porter, working within the limitations of early filmmaking, he managed to craft a film that's still studied and admired for its innovation.
You mentioned you were looking for inspiration for your next project. I think Porter's approach to filmmaking in this film is a fantastic example of resourcefulness and creativity. Back in 1903, most films were single, static shots, often confined to a studio.
Imagine watching a play filmed with one stationary camera. That was the norm back then.
So how did Porter break the mold and create something dynamic and engaging?
He had to get creative. He used just 14 non-continuous shots to tell the story of a train robbery and its aftermath. That's remarkable when you think about it, crafting a compelling narrative with such limited building blocks.
That's right. He couldn't rely on fancy equipment or elaborate sets, so he had to use his ingenuity to find creative solutions.
And this constraint actually became a strength. Take the editing, for example. The Great Train Robbery is one of the first films to use cross-cutting, a technique that allows the director to cut between different scenes that are happening simultaneously.
You can really see the impact of this in the scene where the bandits are robbing the train.
Exactly. Porter cuts back and forth between the action inside the train, where the passengers are being held up, and the telegraph operator is desperately trying to signal for help.
This creates a sense of urgency and keeps the audience on the edge of their seats.
It was a revolutionary approach to storytelling at the time, and it's still used extensively today to build suspense and keep audiences engaged.
And speaking of keeping the audience engaged, Porter didn't shy away from experimenting with camera movement either. Did you know he actually mounted the camera on a moving train for some of the action shots?
That's right. In a time when most films were static, Porter wanted to bring the audience right into the heart of the action. He used this technique to create a sense of speed and movement, which was quite a feat considering the limitations of cameras back then.
I can only imagine the thrill audiences must have felt, seeing the train rushing towards them on the screen.
It was a groundbreaking moment that demonstrated how even simple camera movements can have a huge impact on the energy and feel of a scene.
Another key aspect of the Great Train Robbery that stood out to me was the use of location. Porter chose to film many scenes outdoors, specifically at parks in New Jersey, which was unusual for the time.
Most filmmakers were still confined to studios, but Porter saw the potential of using real-world locations to enhance the realism of the film.
This decision added a level of authenticity and visual interest that wouldn't have been possible in a studio setting.
Absolutely. The outdoor locations added depth and a sense of scale to the film, and it's something that resonates even today. Think about the impact of location in your favorite films. It can make the story feel more real and believable.
Now, I have to admit, this next detail really caught my attention. While most of the Great Train Robbery was filmed in black and white, some prints featured hand-painted color.
It's incredible to think about the meticulous work that went into adding those touches of color. It's a reminder that even in the early days of cinema, filmmakers were already thinking about how to use color to enhance the emotional impact of a scene.
And they were very strategic about it. They highlighted the gunfire flashes with orange-yellow tints to add a dramatic flair to those key moments.
Those small but deliberate choices help to create a sense of realism and danger. It's a reminder that even subtle uses of color can have a big impact on how an audience experiences a film.
And finally, no discussion about the Great Train Robbery would be complete without talking about the special effects. Without the luxury of CGI, Porter had to rely on practical effects and clever camera work to create the visuals for the film.
He was incredibly resourceful. He used techniques like double exposure, which involves exposing the same film frame multiple times to create a layered image.
Can you give an example of how he used this technique?
To simulate a moving landscape outside the train windows, he used double exposure. This created the illusion of the train traveling through the countryside, a technique that was innovative for its time.
And he also used clever camera tricks to create other effects.
For example, in one scene, he achieved the effect of a man falling from a moving train by having the actor jump from a ladder propped against a stationary train. It's a simple trick, but it's effective.
It's a testament to the power of ingenuity. Porter, working with limited resources, had to find creative solutions to achieve his vision.
And these solutions often ended up being more impactful than if he had had access to more sophisticated technology. It's a reminder that sometimes the simplest techniques can be the most effective. What's remarkable is that Porter achieved all of this without relying on dialogue. It was a silent film, so he had to convey the story through visuals and action alone.
It's fascinating how much we can infer from the characters' expressions, their movements, and the way the scenes are composed. It's like a silent language that transcends spoken words.
Precisely. And it requires a different kind of filmmaking, a deep understanding of visual cues, and how they can be used to convey emotion and advance the plot.
This mastery of visual storytelling is evident in how The Great Train Robbery resonated with audiences. It wasn't just a film, it was a cultural phenomenon.
You're right, it was one of the first major commercial successes in American cinema, drawing huge crowds eager to see this thrilling tale unfold on the big screen.
I imagine it must have been quite a spectacle for those early audiences.
Absolutely. Picture this, a darkened theater, and suddenly you see a train rushing towards you, bandits firing their guns, a dramatic chase unfolding before your very eyes. It was a sensory experience unlike anything audiences had seen before.
And it tapped into something deeply resonant within American culture at the time. The spirit of the American West, the thrill of adventure, and the danger of the outlaw life.
Exactly. And it did all of this without a single word of dialogue. It relied purely on the power of visual storytelling to connect with audiences on a visceral level.
We've talked about the groundbreaking techniques and the cultural impact of The Great Train Robbery. But what about its legacy? How did this film influence the countless movies that came after it?
The Great Train Robbery's influence is huge. It helped establish the visual language of film, the very way we understand storytelling on screen. For instance, consider the chase scene, a staple in action films even today. The Great Train Robbery features one of the earliest examples, setting a precedent for countless films to follow.
It's amazing to think that such a fundamental element of filmmaking has its roots in this 12-minute silent film.
And let's not forget Porter's use of cross-cutting. Interweaving different scenes happening simultaneously was revolutionary back then. And we still see this technique used effectively in everything from action blockbusters to psychological thrillers.
It's a testament to the enduring power of a well-executed technique. Even the decision to film on location was groundbreaking at the time.
Absolutely. It was a game changer. Shooting outside the confines of a studio allowed Porter to use the environment to enhance his story, to create a sense of place and realism that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. It's like the difference between watching a play on a stage and experiencing a story unfold in a real, living, breathing world. And The Great Train Robbery was one of the first films to embrace the power of that real-world setting.
And then there's that unforgettable final shot. The outlaw pointing his gun directly at the audience. It's a moment that has lingered in the minds of viewers for over a century.
It's an iconic moment that continues to be analyzed and debated. It's bold, unsettling, and challenges the viewer's sense of detachment from the story.
As a filmmaker, what are your thoughts on that shot?
It's a masterstroke, in my opinion. The outlaw leader, played by Justice D. Barnes, stares directly into the camera, points his gun, and fires. It's a shot that has sparked endless discussion and interpretation over the years.
It's such a bold move, breaking the fourth wall like that. This has been quite shocking for audiences at the time.
Some historians believe it was intended to startle viewers, adding a final jolt of excitement to the film. Others suggest it was a playful way of acknowledging the audience, a wink to those watching the spectacle unfold.
Whatever the intention, it's a powerful image that has cemented its place in cinematic history. And it speaks to the film's willingness to experiment, to push boundaries, and to challenge conventions.
It's a reminder that filmmaking at its core is about finding creative ways to engage with the audience, to evoke emotions, and to leave a lasting impression, whether intended as a playful gimmick or a commentary on the power of cinema. It forces the audience to confront their role as viewers. It reminds us that film can be more than just entertainment. It can be a powerful form of communication, capable of provoking thought and challenging conventions.
As we wrap up this deep dive into The Great Train Robbery, what would you say is the ultimate takeaway for our listeners?
This film serves as a powerful reminder that innovation and creativity are timeless. It demonstrates that constraints can be catalysts for brilliance, forcing us to think outside the box and discover new ways to tell our stories.
And that even with limited resources, filmmakers can achieve incredible things with ingenuity and a clear vision.
Exactly. It's about embracing the power of visual storytelling, recognizing that a well-crafted image can be more powerful than words. Ultimately, The Great Train Robbery teaches us that great stories, told with passion and skill, have the power to transcend time and continue to captivate audiences for generations to come.
So as we bid farewell to this deep dive, we leave you with this question. What will your masterpiece be? We encourage you to continue exploring the world of film, to experiment with your own creative endeavors, and never underestimate the power of a good story.
So there you have it, a bunch of really great lessons learned from The Great Train Robbery and how to make something that tells a great story on a shoestring budget. If you want to read more about this and the technical breakdown of it, please check out the link below to our website at filmandlearning.com. You can also watch this video on our YouTube channel, and the link for that is also down below. Thanks for hanging with me, and I'll catch you in the next episode.